Manufacturing Matters is an MFG Radio Network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries. Hello and welcome to the latest discussion from GIE Media's Manufacturing Group. I'm Jake Kaufman, the senior editor. We're happy to be joined today by BlueForge Alliance as they complete part 3 of their webinar series with today's topic, Integrate Nationally, Catalyze Locally. Before we get started, we want to thank our 2025 webinar series sponsor, Kennametal. Kennametal has been cutting metal since 1938. It's a story of continuous innovation, starting with the development of a revolutionary tungsten titanium carbide alloy for cutting tools specifically for working with steel. This not only led to a new class of machining tools that cut faster, lasted longer, and drove productivity in everything from the automobile to the airplane, but also to Kennametal's recognition as an industry leader across continents and industries, including transportation, construction, aerospace and defense, medical, general engineering, and more. They don't cut corners, they cut metal. Your toughest materials don't stand a chance. You can get more at kennametal.com. We'd also like to thank today's webinar sponsors, ProMess, Smithers, and Hanover Mesa. ProMess is known as a manufacturer of turnkey monitoring and motion systems used in a variety of assembly and test applications around the world. ProMess delivers the complete system, including the mechanics, control electronics, all the sensors, amplifiers, and software. ProMess also provides pre-project application engineering services, along with installation support and training. Meantime, Smithers Information Security Services is a part of Smithers Quality Assessments. They offer assessments against ISO 27001 and NIST SP 800-171 standards. Smithers also serves as a CMMC third-party assessor organization. And we also have Hanover Mesa, who is the world's leading industrial trade fair, showcasing cutting-edge technologies across sectors. Among its highlights are the new defense production area, organized in cooperation with DSEI Germany. The special zone demonstrates how advanced production technologies, from automation and digitalization to AI-driven quality assurance, support defense and security manufacturing from batch size 1 to full-scale production. Today's presenter from BlueForge Alliance is Ben Turpin. He is a senior advisor for strategy with a focus on the executive branch policy and business development. His background is in federal budget and appropriations with experience at the White House Office of Management and Budget, the Department of the Navy, Department of Defense, and House Appropriations Committee. He has a specific experience in Navy operation and maintenance budget. He also has worked as a professional staff member for NASA appropriations, including public-private partnerships. He has a BA and MS in economics from Auburn University and a JD from Tulane University. Without any further ado, Ben, thank you so much for your time today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join. Our discussion today is on investments and local investments and how that catalyzes the economy nationally. BlueForge Alliance is in a unique position. We are a third-party public-private partnership. We are nonprofit and tailored designed to help the defense industrial base. The area of constraints that we have identified is the strain of scale, a fragmented ecosystem of suppliers, and a vanishing pool of workforce talent. So our challenges are an industrial base that consists of diverse stakeholder groups that have their own priorities and incentives and are often fragmented and disjointed. The scale of the opportunity for the Navy in building 2 different classes of submarines and trying to harness the industrial base, and the speed with which acquisition typically occurs, as evidenced by the most recent challenge with appropriations and budgeting. So as we look to these challenges, we have to try to find ways to address both the local challenge, but also um, the regional uh, the regional opportunities. So as we move forward, we have identified about five key areas of primary Navy investment. They are, of course, the Connecticut Groton area for General Dynamics, Maine, the Great Lakes region, Virginia, the Southeast with Austal and HII, and then General Dynamics in California. Those areas all have unique capabilities and demand signals. What we are trying to do at BlueForge is to look at at local investments that can catalyze regional opportunities and then level up to a national imperative. And that is uplifting the maritime industrial base, specifically submarines, getting to the 1+2 model. One thing that we have realized in that endeavor is that there's also the investment in the AUKUS trilateral agreement. So there is an international component as well. When we think about the national and local investments, we also have to think about how that impacts our partners in the United Kingdom and in Australia, and we're working closely with both to try to level that up. So 70% of the manufacturing employees work in a company with fewer than 500 people, which means that most of our suppliers are small. 33% work in a company with fewer than 100 employees, which means that 1/3 of the industrial base for manufacturing ships works in a company with less than 100 employees. These are small family businesses. 98% of manufacturers have less than 500 employees, 76% have less than 50 employees, and 52% have less than 20. These are people working on components for ships, for submarines in two classes, one of which includes our nuclear deterrent. So how do we address these challenges and ensure that these organizations, companies, and manufacturing capabilities stay robust for the demand signal of the next generation of ships? This is where BlueForge has come in to partner with the Navy. We're a nonprofit, mission-driven partner accelerating the revitalization of an atrophied defense industrial base through integrated approaches that deliver speed, access, and scale. We focus almost solely on those three areas. How can we increase speed, develop broader access, and scale appropriately to the demand of the Navy? And we do that through partnerships and ecosystems. We are not the sole answer to the question of how do we uplift the maritime industrial base. This is a national question. So we build partnerships and relationships with capabilities with manufacturers, and we create ecosystems related to those partnerships. So when we think about investments, we look at the individual supplier, and then we try to align that supplier in a region that is doing work towards a specific purpose to create that ecosystem. We also want to create ecosystems around components and around opportunities for economies of scale. So our ecosystems are broad, but they're also regional and component based. We have a number of different ways that we view ecosystems. Partnerships are important for us because BlueForge is not the answer. We don't want to exist as a company doing the same thing in 10 to 15 years because that means that we failed. If we don't find ways to uplift the industrial base through our investments with our partners at the Navy, we haven't done our job. At the same time, we are a public-private partnership. It takes a while for organizations aligning with the federal government to establish themselves, and we're in that phase where we're just now finding those synergies that work towards the benefit of everyone. The way we view public-private partnerships is a pretty broad view. We work with organizations like Bechtel, Deloitte, NCDM, McKinsey. We also work with academic institutions. My alma mater, Auburn University, is a part of our public-private partnership ecosystem. The Workforce Council, SME. So we really look towards uh, partners across the spectrum. How can we integrate all of these different parties into our ecosystem to harness education, harness large scale understanding of construction and development, and then also just the people who do deep dive analytics to make sure that we address these issues. One of the key areas that we focus on is the MEP National Network. We view MEPs as an important component of the submarine industrial base and developing the broader ecosystem. So we really believe in that public-private partnership model. We think that it's the best thing for the country and it's the best thing for the submarine industrial base. This is the key slide, and it talks about our strategy of integrating nationally and catalyzing locally. And the way that we view this is through the regional components, New England, Virginia, and then other defense and maritime industrial base regions. And we take capabilities, which is organizations with diverse core competencies, expertise, individuals with subject matter expertise across diverse topics, programs, investments in relevant and leverageable activities, experience, data, and facilities. So capabilities, expertise, programs, experience, and data and facilities. All of those make up our ecosystems. All of those are key components to developing the defense industrial base, the manufacturing industrial base, in a way in which we can leverage best practices, regional capabilities, and national investments so that we get the best bang for our buck, but more importantly, that we can get the taxpayers in a position where the investments that we're making in defense can improve the industrial base and we can move forward with putting submarines and ships in the water. So BlueForge Alliance is accelerating the revitalization of an atrophied industrial base. If you talk to some of the major shipbuilders, roughly 70% of the defense maritime industrial base suppliers outside of the shipbuilder purview are sole source suppliers. That means that 70% of the defense maritime industrial base is a one supplier solution. If that supplier goes away, then we have to figure out another way moving forward. That's a huge concern for us, but also a huge opportunity for us to leverage best practices in building out the industrial base. We want to ensure both success. We also are cognizant of the fact that if we lose one of these suppliers, we have to quickly find a way to address that and move forward, and also to make sure that we can adequately supply those needs to the Navy and to the shipbuilder. We use we have a very clear method. We call it our data-driven decisions. And my boss, who would have been here today, likes to say bits to atoms, which means that we take as many components as possible and we try to integrate them. So we look at functional metrics, targets, strategies, projects, execution, measurable impacts, and then we try to close that loop. So we constantly are taking data integration into account. We're working with a number of very innovative partners to try to take the data that we have around the defense industrial base and to use that to measure both of the health of the industrial base and to inform the decision making and the recommendations that we make to the maritime industrial base, so that we have the most up-to-date and capable set of capabilities for the country. We look for integrative approaches to address the industrial base. That means that we don't necessarily favor one supplier or another. We really dig down and try to find capabilities, whether it be academic or institutional organizations, and how we can align them to ensure that those piece parts at the local level develop into an ecosystem that informs a region that then has a national impact. And then once we get that national impact, we hope to really play strongly in the international alliance component of the United Kingdom, America, and Australia. Australia is moving forward aggressively with their investments, and the United Kingdom has recently, within the past year, announced an $8 billion investment in the submarine industrial base there. But they have similar problems to the United States and workforce and also suppliers. So while we're working to figure out America, we're also cognizant of our international partnerships. We take a multifaceted approach. Our three core areas of competency are supply chain optimization. We want to strengthen the backbone of production. That is key. But more importantly, workforce development, building that talent pipeline. We cannot have a robust supply chain without a robust pipeline of talent. And we do all of this along with developing new technology. We see advanced technology as a force multiplier. We want to enhance the capacity and de-risk production. When I talk about that 70% being sole source suppliers, we want to find advanced technology ways to address those issues. So whether it be work in additive manufacturing, material certification for utilization in submarines, all of those are opportunities for us to take technology and utilize that to our advantage. Unifying and elevating the supply chain is a core value within BFA. With a supplier network in all 50 states, we want to try to enhance the capacity, refine the process, and adopt cutting-edge technology partnerships through targeted investments, strategic partnerships, and data-informed decision-making. That's a lot of buzzwords. We essentially want to take the supply chain, elevate it, unify it, and do that through data-informed decisions and strategic partnerships. For building the training and talent pipeline, we are working on a national scale to cultivate a highly skilled workforce by attracting and recruiting new talent through national campaigns. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the BuildSubmarines.com campaign, was wildly successful. We also are working with regional partners and local partners. So if you think about the three-tiered approach that I talked about earlier, we want to invest locally at the community college level, at the state level, and then we want to build regionally. So, for instance, some of our partners in the Northeast, in Connecticut, and Virginia, they have a regional approach, which means that we can take that and scale it to different regions, use best practices, and really level up our workforce development through regional capabilities. This isn't just a national campaign. It is targeted towards community colleges, towards high school. In Pennsylvania, there's a 222 program where it starts at the high school level. How can we get the next generation of the workforce out quickly and with the skill sets needed to work on submarines, which is a pretty bespoke set of skills. And finally, the technology development. We do everything from additive manufacturing and robotics and automation and non-destructive testing, and finally, Industry 4.0. We see all of those components as areas of investment that are critical for the future of the Navy. Additive is something where we are certifying capabilities regularly. We're working with the MIB to ensure that those capabilities are available and ready. Robotics and automation, that's something that is talked about regularly. I think that that's a pretty clear answer. Non-destructive testing is something that people don't talk as much about, but we want to ensure that the capabilities that we develop are ready and seaworthy. And then Industry 4.0 is, we want to promote that digital transformation of manufacturing within the maritime industrial base. So when you combine all of those, what does shipbuilding look like for the next 40 years? Because the last set of submarines were developed in the 80s. And so, we have a generational change in not only the way that we produce, but the way the workforce is engaged. We look at ourselves and our partnership with the Navy as an enabler and a connector, And our goal there is to build and maintain relationships, and we convene. We try to organize and maintain focus on the mission. So with that, I'll allocate the rest of our time for questions.
Well, thank you, Ben, for the presentation. So sorry about the slides, but we will be able to get those out to the audience once we wrap up today. I think the first question that I have for you is you have talked, about the relationship that we have with the UK and Australia. Are there other countries that we also are allies that we've kind of looked to help with the shipbuilding issue?
So we are talking the United States is talking with a number of countries about the shipbuilding challenge. There have been some key announcements in the past couple of months, mostly from South Korea. There's also been discussions with Japan. The South Koreans are making investments in the United States, but there are challenges with ITAR issues with, the technology transfer. The current administration has discussed building some ship classes overseas, at least the first in class. Because of the shipbuilding initiative with the current administration, we are exploring non-traditional partners, but our focus is the AUKUS trilateral because that agreement is the furthest along, and we have done work to certify suppliers in those areas. So as we look at AUKUS as the backbone, but we are consistently looking at these other countries as opportunities to take their best practices and apply them in the United States, and then to see how the administration moves forward. Might not necessarily be on submarines, but other ships that we can utilize and leverage. There's even the opportunity with Canada and Finland on icebreakers. How does
Okay.
that impact the maritime industrial base?
Gotcha. And then another question that I have is obviously I believe in Dr. Mogford's last presentation, he had talked about somewhere around like 150,000 jobs, 100,000 jobs that would be needed for the marine industrial base to catch up to where it needs to be. So if you have a single worker, just one, what would kind of be your advice as to which area of the shipbuilding process they could get involved in?
You know, it's a great question, and it would we would really want to engage with that worker and understand what their skill set is, because matching the worker's skill set and their long-term goals with capabilities is incredibly important. So you can train somebody to do electronics, but if they would find a more desirable path to be in welding, then that's what they need to do. It's really about making sure that the worker is aligned with the type of work that they can do successfully, but also what we need. So uh, the number the number that we have been talking about for the past couple of years is around 100 to 150,000, but the projections are up to 200,000 when you look at the industrial base included. So it really is dependent on the individual. But what I would say on a macro level is that we have to change the conversation nationally on what careers are best for the future of the country. It is not a matter of, should we go to college? Should kids go to trade school? There really needs to be a conversation about how we train the future workforce. But that also goes to your first question of how internationally can we use best practices to accommodate the growing workforce, because the next generation of workers is very different than the current one.
Okay. So then with BlueForge Alliance, how much of that focus is on that next generation of the workforce as far as you have talked about like the 222 scenario in Pennsylvania and stuff? What is kind of like the focus on getting not kids, but the younger generation involved in the shipbuilding process?
I would say that between 75% to 80% of our focus is training the next generation of workforce. That is it is essential, because the reality is the men and women who are going to be building the Columbia class submarine are in high school at best,
Yeah.
probably in elementary school. And so if not building, then maintaining. So we have we're producing Virginia class submarines right now with a workforce that, is capable. And there are plenty of opportunities for individuals who are, later in their career to transition to the maritime industrial base. But we are cognizant of the fact that there is no way that you can fill 200,000 jobs by just focusing on men and women who already have that skill set. We're trying to get in early, to train early, and to illustrate the career opportunities available for the next generation. So a significant component of our outreach and engagement is younger kids. That's why when you see the advertisements for buildsubmarines.com, they're flashy, they're exciting. We want the younger generation to be as engaged as possible.
Gotcha. And it looks like Byron in the audience wants to know, can you speak specifically to additive manufacturing and how a U.S. manufacturer could get connected to opportunities in the field, specifically when it comes to binder jet printing?
So binder jet printing is not in my wheelhouse. I'll say that up front. What I will say is that we work on we work with companies that are working in additive to certify and help them go through that process. It's not easy to get into the defense and maritime industrial base, and we really work on supplier development. So if you have a company that is interested in getting through that certification process and ensuring that you have the capabilities and the skill set, our supplier development team is ready and willing to help, especially on advanced manufacturing, additive manufacturing. That is something that, we take every opportunity we can. And how we do that is we send a team out, we assess, we see what you need to be compliant with Navy requirements, with the DFAR, the Defense Acquisition Rules, and we will help you through that process. That is something that is incredibly important to us because additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing is a key component to the future of the submarine industrial base.
Thank you, Ben. And hopefully that answers Byron, or sorry, Brian's question, not Byron. I also had a question and it is kind of lost on me. But yes, once again, if anyone has questions for Ben, you can ask them either in the chat or in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screens. Obviously, you have talked about additive manufacturing. Are there other advanced manufacturing techniques that, BlueForge is really looking to implement in the shipbuilding process to kind of either, speed up the amount of time it takes to build a ship or to maybe, kind of cut down on the amount of jobs needed if there is, a new tactic out there?
So one of the things that I mentioned in the technology slide deck is Industry 4.0. What does industry in the future look like? All of these pieces kind of tie together when you talk about what other countries are doing, and how we can use those capabilities. So, can we implement robotic technology to help build submarines? Can we introduce artificial intelligence to optimize shipyards? If you look at the most recent conversion of Subic Bay by the South Koreans, it was a pretty impressive change in infrastructure and capability. So, we look towards artificial intelligence. We're looking towards robotics, robotic welding, uh, you know, all sorts of advanced technology. You know, whatever we can get our hands around, that's where we're looking. Additive manufacturing is just one component, and we are cognizant of the fact that the next generation doesn't operate. They view both communication and operations very differently, and we have to be willing and able to address that.
Gotcha. So then, Ben, if you have a company that say is on the fence about whether or not they want to get involved in defense manufacturing, maybe, they're kind of worried about the hoops that they'd have to jump through with the different certifications and stuff like that. What would you say are the benefits of getting involved in the defense manufacturing process?
I think it's a no-brainer, to be quite honest with you. The sunk cost at the beginning is a challenge, but that's something that we're willing to help you with. The long-term reality is that once you're a certified manufacturer or once you have a relationship with the Department of Defense, you can do work on almost anything. So if you have a dual use capability, a company that does things that may be applicable to the defense industrial base or the maritime industrial base, it doesn't hurt at all, and it actually helps with the credibility of your company, right? The Department of
Mhm.
Defense says that your capabilities are good enough to put a submarine underwater with 150 mariners, and that gives you some credibility. It also helps with the supply chain, right? As you're developing your capabilities, the supply chain isn't, we talk about the supply chain, and in some instances, I get a little bit tired of saying supply chain over and over
Right.
again.
Yeah.
We associate it largely with, COVID and ships sitting in the water. The reality is that the supply chain is our manufacturers in every city in the country. It is our economy. It is the way that cities survive. And so if you're aligned with the Department of Defense and maybe you do just the occasional part, given the cadence of shipbuilding,
Mhm.
you're still creating a more robust uh, pool from which we can pull capabilities.
Gotcha. And then obviously that would be for the companies that want to get involved in defense manufacturing. If you are a company that is already involved, you have your certifications, but you keep kind of missing out on those contracts that you're bidding for, how can BlueForge help with that?
So that's where our relationships with the prime shipbuilders are incredibly important. If there is a manufacturer that keeps missing that opportunity, we work with the prime to understand why. Why is it that electric boat or HII isn't using a particular capability? Part of it is just a natural tendency to rely on suppliers that you have relationships with. But that doesn't always mean that that is the most successful path, because just because you have a relationship with a company doesn't mean that they are going to be a long-term solution. And so what we try to do is to align and to show both the MIB, the Maritime Industrial Base, the Navy, what capabilities exist out there, and ensure that those organizations get visibility and the opportunity to present themselves. So, as as we're certifying new capabilities, new additive manufacturing technologies, those are constantly raised to the level of the Navy. And if you think about it, if you're missing out on if you're already certified with the Department of Defense and you're missing out on Navy work, and you can apply your capabilities to other services, there are a ton of other acquisition programs that are going to be in demand. And one of the things that the current administration is doing, and we're in the process of shifting our relationship with the Department of Defense, is direct report program managers for key acquisition programs. So there's going to be a significant demand for suppliers for everything from submarines, which we're focused on, to the Golden Dome project, the F-35, the next generation jet fighters, fighter jets.
Mhm.
We focus on the maritime industrial base, but the reality is that the industrial base writ large is in need of suppliers.
Gotcha. And I believe I asked Dr. Mokford this question when he was on last time, but it's nice to have a different perspective on it too. So obviously, a lot of the work for shipbuilding is done on the coasts, but what are the sort of roles that Middle America plays in the whole shipbuilding process?
Fantastic question. I'm from Kentucky originally, and so the Ohio and Mississippi rivers are key opportunities to take capabilities and to ship them across the country. Um, the reality is that it takes the entire country. This is a national effort, and so whether it be somebody who builds a small flange in Idaho, or a new electronic technology capability in California, those are all key components. We don't look at any one region of the country as being the most important region. As a matter of fact, when you talk about uh, coastal dominance in the maritime industrial base, when you look at the Southeast, the most aggressive entrant into the submarine industrial base is the state of Alabama, We're based in Texas, and there's not a lot of submarine work that's coming out of the state of Texas. So when you look at it from a national perspective, there are a lot of states that are aggressively moving into the maritime industrial base. One of them, surprisingly enough, is Ohio. You and I talked before this about, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Ohio is selling its access to the Great Lakes as a opportunity to do maritime industrial based work. So there is no state that's off the table when it comes to the capabilities that we see as an opportunity.
Awesome. Well, I believe this is the last call for any questions for Ben. Also, if you wanted to check out previous webinars, you can check those out on any of GIE Media's manufacturing group websites, whether it be defenseandmunitions.com, aerospace manufacturing and design.com, or todaysmedicaldevelopments.com. If you go to the webinars on demand tab, you can check out parts 1 and 2. But that just about wraps up part 3 today with Ben. But we also want to thank our 2025 webinar series sponsor, Kennametal, one last time. And also, big thank you to today's sponsors, ProMess, Smithers, and Hanover Mesa. And obviously, massive thank you to BlueForge Alliance and Ben Turpin. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today, Ben. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
You can listen to all of our episodes of Manufacturing Matters and Lunch and Learn podcast from the MFG Radio Network on Spotify, Apple Music, and on our websites, todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospace manufacturing and design.com, defenseandmunitions.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.